Do you feel like your music career is broken and you have no idea how to fix it? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you 13 of the biggest music mistakes that I've made over the past 20 some odd years that might be costing you fans, streams, and respect. Stay tuned to see which ones you're guilty of and how to fix them so that you can get your music career back on track and take the next step in your journey of becoming a successful musician. Back in 2007, when I first started on this whole independent musician journey, I was living in a bedroom in Toronto making a bunch of music on a laptop. At the time, I was attending recording school and I was surrounded by a ton of other really talented musicians. I knew that I wanted to be putting out my own music into the world, but because I was surrounded by so many great musicians, I knew that the music I put out had to be great. And not just great, it had to be perfect. It had to be world-changing. Now, because of this ridiculous expectation that I had put on myself, a lot of the music that I started back then just never got finished and never came out because I was so concerned with getting it perfect that I just never started. And I was terrified that if I put out music that wasn't perfect, well, then everyone would laugh at me. No one would take me seriously. I would have failed at becoming a musician before I even started. But the real kicker is that had I put that music out, I absolutely would have failed because I was just starting out. I couldn't make world-changing music. It's a ridiculous thing to put on your own shoulders, especially when you've barely put out any music at all and you're just making it yourself in your bedroom. But by not ever putting that music out, by submitting to that fear, I was just holding myself back from maybe eventually someday learning to make a piece of art that's, I don't know, good enough, a piece of art that maybe connects with some other people and has an effect on someone else's life. Instead of being worried that I wasn't good enough and that I was going to fail, I should have just started failing a lot sooner, because that's all having a music career really is: failing over and over and over again, but a little bit less every time. I know that it's scary, the idea of putting your art out into the world to be judged by other people, but you need to kick fear in the dick. You need to just put your music out there so that you can start failing. People are going to criticize you, but that's a good thing. That's how we learn to get better. If you don't start, no one will ever hear your music and you will never become a successful musician because you never started. No one can know that you're a great musician if there's no music out there for them to listen to. Of course, once you finally start, you're going to need gear to record your music on, right? Well, one of my most popular songs and my most streamed song of all time was recorded about 12 years ago in a bedroom on a terrible mic, on a terrible interface, on a busted up old laptop. I think personally that the mix sounds terrible and my performance isn't the greatest and the guitar tones are kind of trash and I wasn't recording on a very good guitar and definitely I wasn't using really expensive plugins and I didn't mix it on professional studio monitors. I honestly probably did it on headphones or some HS5s, but the fact remains that it's a song that still gets hundreds of streams every single day. If I'd have been so worried about making sure that I owned all the right pieces of gear before I ever recorded the song, well, then it definitely would have never come out and nobody would be listening to it. And the fact is, the audience does not give a shit what your song was recorded on. They care if it emotionally resonates with them. So don't worry about buying the right gear because it doesn't matter. The only people that care about the gear that you have are other gearheads, and you're never gonna win with those people. Of course, once you finally put some music out there into the world, people are gonna listen and you're gonna start to have a bit of success eventually. You're gonna start to get some listeners and streams and people are gonna actually enjoy your music. But I remember one time going to a house show and one of the local bands that was playing, they were doing quite well. They were younger than me, hadn't been around anywhere near as longer, but I stood there in the room watching as probably 100 people from my local scene were screaming and singing along to one of their songs. I remember spending that night bitching and complaining about how that band didn't really deserve the success that they had and they didn't know what it was like to grind and all this and that, and it was all just a bunch of bullshit because really I was just jealous of the success that this band had had. But here's the thing, they were making a different kind of music than I was making. They were different people with different lives, and it was a group of people also working together instead of just one person making music on their own. But I was straight up bitter about it, and to this day, it still upsets me to think about how bitter I was over something so arbitrarily pointless. Because that band doesn't even exist anymore. Comparing yourself to others is a great way to basically just make you look like a bitch. and you don't want to be a bitch. And once you've stopped comparing yourself to others, you can finally get to work really trying to change the world with your music. Heck, I wanted to change the world with my music, and that's like a big goal. And I don't even know if that's like a goal. That's like a dream. That's a pipe. That's like a long shot dream that you're going for. Then how does one even go about trying to change the world with music, right? Like, what are the steps that you take? Hell, what are the steps that you take to just have a reasonably successful music career where you could pay your bills with music? What goes into making a living as a musician? Well, there's definitely a lot of things, but I will tell you that if you don't work out the steps that you need to take in order to achieve even a goal of success as a musician, not changing the world, then there's a very real chance that you're never gonna have it happen because you're just doing random crap. Oh, let's go play this random show. Oh, let's put out this random song. Hey, I can sell some merch. Oh, now I'm gonna do a sponsored video on YouTube, even though I'm a musician. Oh, I'm gonna write a custom song for somebody. All of these things are great, but if you don't have an actionable set of steps to follow, then you're just kind of doing random stuff, and random stuff will happen in your career. And I don't think I've ever heard of any like quote unquote successful person say that they just did random things until they were successful. Most of them just did the same thing over and over and over again until they found success. Look, it's as Taylor Swift says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Or was that Benjamin Franklin? Whatever. Now that you have a plan, you can finally start putting out music, right? It's awesome. And back when I was in a cool horror punk band in my 20s, I was like really particular about the artistic direction of the band, which I think was good because it made sure that we were always on brand because we had a plan. But I would spend all of this time like hand designing all of the album art for every single album and song that we put out. It was cool and I don't regret doing that stuff, but this was in the 2010s, so people were still like putting out albums and stuff. But now we live in like a singles dominated world, which means you need a piece of artwork for every single song that you put out. If you're agonizing about making sure that the piece of artwork that's attached to your album is perfect for every single release, you're really just wasting a lot of time because most people are listening to music on their phones and the size of the album art thumbnail is like this big. You can barely even see it. Honestly, you're probably better off spending all that time you would agonizing over the perfect album artwork and just making more music. Yeah, or working on growing your career. Things that actually matter. Just take a picture or download a free stock photo or something. Honestly, it doesn't matter because you can just change album art later if you want to. I do it all the time. Now that we're actually spending more time working on our music instead of agonizing over album art that doesn't matter, we can really hammer into getting the perfect build up to one of our songs, right? We gotta get those songs just right. Back when I was, again, in my early 20s and I was trying to write this revolutionary music that was definitely gonna change the world and did not, I wanted to create this super kind of theatrical concept album that told a big long story and built up from the ground, starting with just a single instrument, slowly building to a massive crescendo, and then driving this amazing song home to just blow the minds of the listeners. Of course, every single time I showed the song to any of my friends, by the time they were like, I don't know, halfway into the intro, they were scrolling on their phones or going to the bathroom or something like that. I hadn't even gotten to the meat of the song, the good stuff, the stuff that people actually want to listen to, and everyone was basically just tapping out. People had short attention spans as it was back in the early 2010s, but nowadays, everyone's attention span is like a second long. If you waste a whole bunch of time on a meaningless intro, you're just gonna lose listeners. Nobody has time for that anymore. I'm not saying you don't deserve to have cool instrumental sections in your song, just maybe save it for the bridge. That way people are already invested. Give them the good stuff right away. You wouldn't want your time wasted, so don't waste other people's time. Back in 2018, I recorded an album with a couple of friends of mine at a studio. It was like a really fun experience. It was just some friends making a pop punk record. Really proud of it. Because of like some things that happened in the world, we ended up sitting on it for a number of years, but in 2023, I spent the year releasing the album as a series of singles. The idea was that I could release the album, and then over the course of that year, I could also start writing and recording and finishing up all the songs for 2024. The goal was to have 6 completely finished songs in the can by the end of 2023, and it is December 13th, 2023 today, and I have 4 songs completely done, all of which were done in the past 2 months. It is a fact that if you give yourself a long timeline for a project, the majority of the project's work is going to get done near the end of that project. And what's really difficult about this is that 2 of the songs they came out this year, at the end of the year, so I can't even use them next year. But when I look back on the year, I can see that it's not just because I'm coming to the end of the year and I have a deadline to hit that the songs are getting finished. It's because I made one small change that has made it possible to output songs at a much higher rate. I now set a window of 2 hours a day that I work on music exclusively, every single day, except Mondays. I've chosen to put this 2-hour block in the morning. I just feel like I'm much more inspired back then. And as soon as I did that, I started finishing songs a lot faster. Because once you start blocking out time to actually do something, it becomes a lot easier to actually do it because there aren't a million other things that you could be doing or should be doing or maybe you'll do, and I'll get to that later. There's no time for excuses when the time is specifically blocked for one task and one task only. Having a system in place for which to actually create the music that you need to put out into the world to be a successful musician is very imperative, and setting aside specific time every single day to work on your craft, well, it's definitely made a big difference for me. And we're talking about a guy who's been doing this for a very long time. Like, I should know better, right? I started making music in 2003, and back when I was 13 years old and picked up my first guitar, man, I wanted to be Blink-182 so bad, so bad. And I know I'm not the only one. But here's the thing. I'm not Blink-182. Nobody else is Blink-182. The world doesn't need another Blink-182. We have Blink-182. And the reality is that probably there won't be another band to achieve the kind of success that Blink-182 has achieved. Not that no other band will get as big as them. There are plenty bigger bands than them. But the specific success that that band has found for being that band, no one else is going to get that. You're not going to get that. I'm not gonna get that. It's not really worth even trying. It's really an unrealistic expectation to set for oneself to think that you're going to be another musician or have the same success or the same career trajectory as another band or musician. You're going to have your own career. It's going to look very much like your career only. And when you get to the end of it, no one else will be able to replicate it. Don't expect that you're going to be as big as Blink-182 or Green Day or Taylor Swift or The Weeknd. It's just silly. You're not those people. You're going to have your own kind of success. Just enjoy that. I think I missed one, or did I double label 8 twice? No, I missed one here. Oh. Speaking of Blink-182, there was a point in my career when I just started really striking out as Andy Negative and doing things solo after being in a band for 10 years that I just started making random music, right? I wanted to just try out a bunch of different things, and I did that. I had a very experimental period, which I think is a good thing to do. Try to make a bunch of different kinds of music. But then I also really, enjoy pop punk and emo music, so, at some point, you gotta kind of really lean into the music that you want to make. And you can keep trying a bunch of different things, but at some point you're gonna have to pick a genre and you're just gonna have to niche down on that genre. I know you don't want to have your music pigeonholed into a specific genre. Well, Andy, I actually have a bit of hyperpop and a bit of synthwave and then a bit of jazz and then also a bit of rock and roll, a little bit of hip hop, and there's some punk rock in there too, and also like a bit of ska. We like polka music too. We gotta put a little bit of everything in there. We get it. You are a nuanced individual. You are a creator that has digested tons and tons of music, and that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. You want to express that through your music. But if you just kind of pick a genre to focus on, maybe not from a music creation standpoint, but from a marketing standpoint, it will be much easier because then you know the kind of people you're trying to talk to. And that's important when it comes to actually marketing and promoting yourself, which I know sounds dirty, but knowing who you're talking to when promoting that music makes it a lot easier to promote that music. So you don't have to stay exclusively making pop punk music for the entire duration of your career. Blink-182 is a rock band now, not really a pop punk band at all, but it is helpful to kind of pick a genre and focus in on that at least to start. You can grow out of that later. It's fine. Hell, you can switch after 5 years if you decide you're bored of it anyway. Then it's at least something exciting for people to talk about. But it definitely does help to just pick a genre and start somewhere. I wouldn't worry about it too much. None of it matters anyway. Soon genre is going to be dead. Speaking of the beginning of my Andy Negative career, I had a whole tour booked for my old band, and then the band kind of super imploded. But instead of canceling the tour, I decided, well, hell, I'll just go out on tour on my own. But I needed some music to promote, so I wrote and recorded a full 9-song EP in 2 weeks, and then got it all pressed so I would have some music to actually go out and play on tour. That's all fine and dandy, but then after the tour was over, there was a very long gap before I put out my next album. like many, many years because I decided that I was going to make a punk rock opera. I'm very proud of what I did, but it took me 5 years to make, which is a very long time in between releases. Even back then, we weren't quite in the constant single all the time world that we are in now, and that was too long between releases. Right now, we operate in an attention economy where attention is almost as good, if not better, than money. Because if you can hold people's attention, you can usually get them on board and they can become fans, and fans help you sustain a career long term. But if you're only putting out songs once every 5 years or once every year, hell, once every 6 months, you're really not providing your potential fans with anything to hold on to. It's the same with song intros. People's attention spans are short, and people are flooded with content constantly, every single day. It's like a non-stop landslide of things being thrown at them on social media apps. If you can't even sort of keep up with that, you're gonna lose people. They're gonna forget about you. That's the hard fact of it. If you can find a way to consistently put out a new song every couple weeks, once a month, then you're going to have the ability to stay on top of people's minds, which is the name of the game today. And in that world of everything happening all at once, all the time, it could seem like there are so many things that you need to do. Hell, just this past Black Friday, like what, a month ago, I had like a full-blown meltdown because I was trying to find a way to run a deal on my merch store where I could give away 3 t-shirts for the cost of 1, and I would lose some money, but it's okay because then I would have this big talking point that I could have so I could get people's attention, and I could sell a bunch of print-on-demand t-shirts to people because that's what musicians do, right? You gotta have a big offer, and if you have a big offer, people are spending money, and then I can make a bunch of extra money, and then if I could just find a way to make this work, then I can have so much success. I'll have all this money. But I burned hours trying to find a way to make this all work, and I realized, actually it was pointed out to me by my girlfriend, that I don't want to be a t-shirt salesman. I wanna make music and content. And it's so easy as an independent musician to fall down these rabbit holes because you're kind of just like a small business and you're running it yourself. So there's like a million things you have to do, right? But if you try to do all of the things all of the time, you will never get any of the things finished. You really need to just focus on what's important. For me, that's making content because I know that that's what works for me. For you, it might be something different. Maybe the merch site is important to you and it, is something you should have going, but you can't get unfocused and let things eat up all your day when you should really be focusing on making content and making music to bring in new people. It's extra tricky for me because I have ADHD, which means I just get sidetracked so easily. So if you can keep someone around you that can keep you on track, honestly, it makes such a big difference. I'm very lucky, very, very lucky that I have people to call me on my shit. I mentioned that I put out a punk rock opera that took me like 5 years to create. I put so much time and effort and attention to detail into this album, and I still think it's a fantastic album. But the thing is, once I finished it, I just kind of put it out there. And then I thought to myself, well, I've made this thing that I've put all kinds of thought and focus and attention into, and it's a great piece of music in my opinion. So of course, because it's amazing, people are gonna find it and listen to it, and it's going to explode, and I'm going to become super famous because of it. Well, that definitely did not happen, because if you never tell people about something, they're never gonna know that it exists. Now, I did do a small amount of promotion, and I made a couple music videos, but did I really promote it as best as I could have? No, I didn't really make much content. I made a few posts on my social media page about it, and then I got depressed that it didn't get very many streams. Of course, this year, I decided I would make some content for some of those songs, and I would just put them up on TikTok. And now one of the songs from that album is one of my most popular and most streamed songs, because I started making short content for it. And I know, you didn't get into being a musician to be a content creator. You just want to make your art, man, and put it out so people can find it. But if you think about it, content is just like album artwork. It's just an extension of your artistic vision. And if you put some time and effort into that extension, which allows you to present your art in a brand new way to new people who might like your art, if you were to just put a little bit of work into it, then I can tell you from personal experience that more people will find your music. You don't have to do dances on TikTok. You don't have to make skits if you don't want to. You can just play your song in a cool place and put a little caption on it. And I would almost guarantee it will get you more streams than just putting your song up and putting a story post that you put a new song out and like telling your mom and dad. I mean, there's only so many times your mom and dad can stream your music. Trust me, I know, because there was a point where they were the only people listening to my music. Just make some content. Just when you're done watching this video, just go make one piece of content for one song. You'll get more streams. And I don't exactly have a story for this one because, well, I haven't done it. So this one isn't actually technically a mistake that I've made, but it is definitely a mistake that hundreds and thousands or hundreds of thousands of musicians have made, are making today, and will continue to make. And that's that if you stop, the second that you do, well, then that's as far as you get. So don't stop. Ever, right? If you got into music to become super famous, that has a really thin line you're walking on, and who's most famous changes constantly all the time anyway. So you're trying to get to the top, and you're not going to be there very long, really. So good luck. I wish you best of luck, but you're not really looking to make a sustainable career at that point. You're just looking for some ego, and that's fine. You want to glorify your ego. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just, that's a double-edged sword there. If you're looking to make a ton of money, well, I gotta be the one to tell you right now that, like, you should just go become a lawyer. Go try to get into law school, seriously, because this is not a great way to make a fortune. You can make money, you can make a living, but if your goal is to be super rich or super famous, probably music is not the right call. Some people will get it, but most people won't. But if your goal is to just have a sustainable career where you can live a life of making art and putting it out into the world and hopefully slowly winning over a large group of people who like that, so you can continue to do that for the duration of your life. Take care of your family or your dog, your kids, your parents, I don't know, whoever you want to take care of. Obviously, it's different for everybody. Well, then your timeline should be your entire life. And when your timeline is your entire life, then you can't fail because you have literally all of your time in the world. So as long as you're patient and you don't give up, well, then you too could have a successful music career. But even if you follow all of these tips, there's still 3 massive mistakes about making music that if you don't fix, will definitely stop you from finding any real success. So watch this video next where I break down all 3 and show you how to fix them.